When it comes to long-range battery electric vehicles, Toyota has actually been playing catch-up to a lot of its competitors. Remember, this is Toyota, a brand that pioneered electrification with their hybrids over 20 plus years ago. However, even a big company like Toyota can admit when they've made a mistake. And as you can see this week, I am driving the vehicle that is designed to seriously push the company forward into the electric era. This is the 2023 Toyota bZ4X, a new sub-brand of all-electric vehicles that stands for Beyond Zero. The bZ4X is designed to start all of it, with the company promising a plethora of new bZ vehicles by the end of this decade. So as you can see this week, I am driving the bZ4X for a full week, and unlike my first taste with the car about a year ago, this is an actual production model. This is a limited front-wheel drive trim. We're actually gonna live with the car for a full week. We're gonna put it through our usual battery of tests. We're gonna range test it, and we're also going to DC fast charge it, because the big question I want answered at the end of this review, has Toyota truly delivered an EV that was worth the long wait? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the design of the bZ4X, I want to show you guys what's underneath the hood. As you guys know, with any EV, that million-dollar question, does it have a frunk? As you can see, the bZ4X sadly does not, and that's kind of an area where I think Toyota did it wrong with the start of this all-electric platform. Now, underneath the hood, you're gonna find one electric motor powering the front wheels. That's because I have the single motor front wheel drive version. You can also get a dual motor all-wheel drive version, which I'll have to save for another review. This motor has about 150 kilowatts of power, just powering the front wheels, which translates to 201 horsepower and 196 pound-feet of torque. It is fed by a 71.4 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack that is manufactured by Panasonic. If you guys go for the all-wheel drive version, Toyota actually splits the power output in half and puts an 80 kilowatt motor in the front and an 80 kilowatt motor in the rear, giving you 214 horsepower. That has a slightly larger 72.6 kilowatt-hour battery pack that is manufactured by CATL. So as you can see, different battery manufacturers. It all goes out through a one-speed reduction gear transmission. This model here, being the front-wheel drive model in limited trim with the 20-inch wheels, is rated to get up to 242 miles of range. It has a 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger, which means on a level 2, it'll take about 10 to 11 hours to fully charge this vehicle, which is pretty slow by this class. I mean, I've driven vehicles that have an 11.5 kilowatt onboard charger, which is nearly twice as quick. This model here, being the front drive model, can accept a maximum of 150 kilowatts on a DC fast charger. We'll test that out later this week. Toyota says you can do 0 to 60 at around 7.1 seconds. It has a top speed of around 104 miles an hour, and Toyota actually doesn't rate this car to tow, so towing is not recommended, but as this car sits, it weighs in at just over 4,400 pounds. Closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the styling of the bZ4X, because as you guys know, Toyota also partnered with Subaru to develop this vehicle. Although it's primarily mostly a Toyota, the company handled the chassis, the platform, the battery pack, the motors, the interior, and Subaru really just handled the all-wheel drive system. So looking at the styling of the bZ4X, you can see it pretty much fits in the Toyota family, although I do see some hints of Lexus in the design. The front fascia has no grille, as you can see, but it almost tries to mimic having a grille because of this black area here with the smooth front bumper, the Toyota logo, which, by the way, Toyota stopped doing the blue logos. They used to do that on hybrids. Now they've got a new Beyond Zero logo that they just introduced on the Prius. This does not have it, however. You can see the headlight has this really interesting look where it has this body-colored plastic piece over the top of the headlight. Down here you can see you have the multi-LED projector headlights with LED daytime running lights, LED low and high beams. No fog lights. These headlights also aren't adaptive, but you do have functional vents there that allows for air to pass through to create an air curtain. You have really nice integrated parking sensors. You do have some actual vents down there in the lower grille. And overall, this particular tester that I'm showing you, this limited trim in the wind chill pearl with the two-tone black roof, certainly looks polarizing. You especially notice it from the side profile where you've got those black, or kind of, it's like a dark graphite gray gloss painted fender flares along the front and rear, which almost looks like the car was in an accident where it has different color fenders. I don't love the look. Subaru actually makes it look even worse because they are black plastic as opposed to being painted. Let me know in the comment section below. If you guys go for a darker color, it will kind of mitigate some of this really big, high contrasting design. Now, looking at the side profile or the wheels, you can see These are the 20-inch wheels that you get with the Limited. They're wrapped in 235/50 R20 tires, Bridgestone all-season tires. These wheels are 2 inches larger versus the base XLE trim, and they do reduce the range by about 10 mpg. You have a 4-wheel independent suspension, and all bZ4Xs have about 8.1 inches of ground clearance. So unlike a Mach-E or an ID4 or a Ioniq 5, you actually have decent SUV ground clearance in this vehicle. Now over here, you can see this is your charge port door to access your DC fast charging and your J1772 plug. You can see here, like I said earlier, this will accept up to 150 kilowatts. We'll talk about how much it actually does in the real world when we actually go to an Electrify America station and test that out. You can see the door isn't power, it's manual, it's pretty basic looking. Over on the side mirrors here, you can see no integrated turn signal mirrors here, but you do have a camera. It's got a full 360 camera system. These are also, I believe, non-power folding. So you do have blind spot monitoring and they're heated, but they're not power folding. You do have a panoramic glass roof, which this does not open. It has a power retractable shade. You can see my tester has the two-tone look for another $400. The color is also an extra $500. But looking at from this profile, you can really see the BZ certainly has an interesting design. There are some parts where I think it looks a little bit like a RAV4 in the midsection of the vehicle, and then when you look at the back, you can see you've got the contrast or the new design language of Toyota with that full-length LED taillight. It actually almost looks Lexus-like. Remember, there is a Lexus version of this car coming called the RZ, which I'll be testing in a couple of months. You can see I like the full LED light blade. You have LED daytime running light or LED turn signals, LED brake lights. You've got the blue Beyond Zero badge there with the Limited badge. Remember, this one here is not all-wheel drive. I'm not entirely sure if there is an all-wheel drive badge, but I'll have to double check whenever I get one of those to test. And then opening up the trunk, well, actually, before we do that, you can see my tester is missing the rear twin spoiler that's like an extra $300. It kind of looks naked without it, and you're also probably noticing this glass area has a really steep rake, which is one of the reasons why there is no rear wiper here. Toyota says because of the design, when you drive the vehicle, the water will kind of just flow off of the back by aerodynamics, so that takes away the need for a wiper. I kind of thought when I had the car for a week that you still need a rear wiper, especially when I drove it in the rain. Now opening up the trunk, you can see pretty good sized cargo area, but because of that sloping roof, you do have reduced space, but you do get still around 27 cubic feet of total space, which is pretty good. If you want to fold down the second row seats here, you can get a maximum of around 57 cubic feet. My tester is missing the JBL sound system, which would have a sub back here, which would reduce it ever so slightly. And you can see down underneath here, there is also a little bit of underfloor storage, no temporary spare. You can see this car does come with the mobile charger, which is definitely nice. Toyota doesn't charge you extra for it like some competitors do. So let's go ahead and take a look at the interior of this 2023 bZ4X in the Limited trim. The first thing I do want to show you guys is the key fob. You can see this is the typical Toyota fob. It has the usual buttons to lock, unlock, open up the trunk from the power liftgate, and you can also turn on the air conditioning or the heat via the remote fob along with the panic button. If you have access to the Toyota Connected Services app, you can also control this vehicle from your smartphone, which I imagine most of you will end up doing anyways if you're the owner of this vehicle. Now, unlike some EVs that have really crazy door handles, Toyota went with a more traditional approach. They just pop out normally. They look like they were pulled off of every other Toyota vehicle. And then when you open up the interior, you can see the white exterior of my tester has a nice black Softex leather interior. This is one of the reasons why you go with the Limited trim. You get the faux leather material with heated and ventilated seats. You also have 10-way power seats, although Toyota surprisingly doesn't do memory seats on this car, which I guess for the price range they should have. You can also go with a gray Softex if you'd like, but it's really only your choice of black or gray. The gray is definitely more on the lighter end of the gray scale. And then looking at the door panels here, you can see you have a soft touch injection molded plastic, a lot of piano black plastic on the door. That's gonna attract a lot of smudges and fingerprints. And then a nice padded armrest area over here, hard touch plastic down here. And then all the windows are one-touch automatic for all four, which is nice, although it looks like only the driver window is illuminated, so that's something that I think Toyota could have done. At least, unlike the Volkswagen ID4, you have your own separate rear window switches, which is something that I know a lot of people don't like about the Volkswagen. Now, getting inside, with that 8.1 inches of ground clearance, you actually have a nice, easy SUV-like step-in height, so that's one of the reasons why you're gonna want this over most of its competitors. As I get in and shut the door, the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. This is built off of a dedicated EV platform called ETNGA. So starting the car up, you can see there's a power button down here. And And then when you hit that power button, you can hear it has its own unique chime, and then everything kind of comes to life. This vehicle was the first car to introduce this really high up instrument panel display, which almost looks like a heads-up display. It's got this kind of like spaceship-like design and this really weird looking steering wheel. Actually, I don't like the steering wheel look. Toyota is now using this dash design on the new Toyota Prius. So I think the steering wheel to me is just really ugly, and it does take a little bit of time to get used to the look because this is the way I have the car adjusted. The seat I had to raise up a little bit higher. The steering wheel I actually have to put it a little bit lower than what I'm used to, because if you have it too high, you can see it blocks that view right there. So this is kind of where I had it for me. It also does have a tilt and telescoping arrangement, which you can kind of have it going further away. So kind of try the driving position out for yourself, see if it works for you. And then that display over here is slightly customizable. You can kind of change a few different views over there to show your audio, for example, trip information, settings, warnings, and then there's your power consumption. I am slightly annoyed though, because that right there is the battery charge, and Toyota doesn't offer a percentage view, which I think they should. I think Hyundai and Kia just do a far better job with showing useful information. This is a 7-inch display, and then you have a 12.3-inch display that has their new Toyota audio multimedia interface that we've tested on all of the other new Toyota vehicles. Over here you can see it's got this kind of fabric material where it's slightly padded on the dash. Far over there you can't really reach it, it's hard touch plastic. This screen here, I wish it was a little bit of a thinner bezel, but it is within easy reach. You also have features like heated and cooled seats, a heated steering wheel, and this really great feature here, it's got a kind of like a foot warmer. It's like a foot and leg warmer. You can see right here on this area, when you turn that on, it gets really hot here. It blows hot air out, and you can feel this area just gets instantly heated quickly, which makes it so I don't have to have the heater on in this vehicle. And what you're gonna notice there, when I turn off the heat, the range goes up by like 50 miles there, or 60 miles. So that heater really eats into a lot of that range from the battery when it's colder out. So you can, again, turn on this heated area here, which will, along with the heated steering wheel and the heated seats, kind of helps to keep the driver and the passenger warm. Now, over here on the center stack, you can see when I put the vehicle into reverse, there's your full 360 camera that offers a top-down 360 view with cross-traffic alert and automatic braking. It has trajectory, it has front and rear parking sensors. The resolution is definitely good. Toyota's gotten this better and better over the years, although it still doesn't have that full 360 perimeter scan that I like on some Hyundai vehicles, which is really nice. Over here you can see you have your climate controls, dual zone automatic climate control. You have a heated windshield, which is nice. A lot of piano black plastic on this center stack, which again shows a ton of fingerprint marks. And then you have this really interesting shifter for the 1-speed reduction gear transmission. You can see park is a button there. Push it down and go to reverse, twist it to the left to go to reverse, twist it to the right to go to drive, and then just push down on it to go to neutral, and then push that P button to go to park. This is for your boosted regen braking, which when you turn it on or off, it does create sort of a one-pedal driving effect, but it doesn't really give you true one-pedal driving. You have an eco mode here, a snow mode. You can turn off your stability control off, and then you can do a 360 perimeter scan, but that view is pretty useless. I don't find that to be useful at all. I would much prefer a view where I can just use my finger and scroll around the vehicle, which again, some competitors offer that. This is interesting right here. You can see this is where my wireless phone charging pad is here. And then if I close that, you can actually see it's slightly see-through, so you can see if your phone is in there or not. There's also a USB-A charging port. There's also storage down here with another USB-C and a regular 120 power outlet. You have cup holders here, padded armrest here, which also slides forward. And then if you open this up, you can see kind of shallow center console storage area. The seats you can see are pretty comfortable and supportive. I like the Softex. I would choose these seats over the cloth in the base XLE version, which is nice. And then over here you can see there's no glove box in this car, because when I push this button right here, which is the foot and leg warmer for the passenger side, this area right here is actually what gets hot. It blows and heats up this area here to help keep the passenger warm if you don't want to turn on the heater. So that's the reason why this car, I believe, doesn't have a glove box, which is kind of annoying. There isn't really much storage space in this car. Now over here you can see you have an auto dimming rearview mirror, although I'm surprised Toyota doesn't offer the digital camera rearview mirror that you can get on a RAV4. You also have LED map lights. There is some LED footwell lighting at night, although it's pretty rudimentary. And then over here you can see you have a panoramic glass roof, although you can see it just has one sunshade that's power, and there's also a bar that kind of goes between the roof the front and rear occupants, which this doesn't open, but I'm surprised there's this bar here. So overall, the interior certainly has a weird spaceshipy design. It has good tech, and it has plenty of space in here. But I have to say, it is lacking in terms of storage. I think for some people that it's missing a glove compartment, it'll really throw a lot of people off until they kind of get used to that. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat of this vehicle, because Toyota expects this to be used as a family car. Now, it's about 5 inches longer than something like a Toyota RAV4 at 184.6 inches long, and you have around 35.7 inches of legroom back here, which is pretty good amount of space, actually. This feels like it has more room versus the last RAV4 that I was in. And as I get in and shut the door, you can see the door sounds pretty much the same as the front. You have a soft touch injection molded plastic here, and you have a lot of piano black plastic trim. You have 2 USB charging ports. You have vents back here, and Toyota also throws in 3-level heated seats. That's another reason to go with the limited trim. You have 2 storage pockets over there, and then these seats also do fold down, and they also recline ever so slightly, and you also have an armrest here that comes down and gives you 2 cup holders. Now, surprisingly, the floor here isn't completely flat, but it's mostly flat. Remember, this is a dedicated EV platform. And then back here, you can see nice view out of the panoramic glass roof. You have LED lighting back here. But overall, if you're looking for an electric SUV in this segment, the bZ4X, I'd say, offers one of the bigger back seats in the real world. So it's been nearly a year since I've been behind the wheel of Toyota's very first dedicated all-electric vehicle, the bZ4X. Things didn't start off well for this car. I mean, they had to stop selling it for almost 6 months because of the recall where the wheels were falling off. Thankfully, there is a fix, and Toyota resumed sales back in November. So now that we're finally behind the wheel of a production version of this car, not a pre-production car like I did last year, this model here, being the front-wheel drive model, means we have a battery built by Panasonic. We have up to 201 horsepower and 196 foot-pounds of torque. Front-wheel drive. This isn't a rear-drive biased or rear-drive electric vehicle like something like the ID4 or the Ioniq 5 or Kia EV6, but this car, despite having disappointing numbers on paper, at least for an EV, it actually, I thought, felt quicker in the real world. So now that I've got a full charge, it was showing 293 miles on a full charge. We'll go ahead and test out what we can get 0 to 60 wise. The road is a little damp, but I didn't really feel too much in the terms of slippage, but wow, 6.67 seconds is very impressive considering this is the front-wheel drive model. Now, I remember when I tested the all-wheel drive model, the quickest number I got there was like 6.1. It's about a half a second faster. So again, Toyota claims 7.1 for this model here with front-wheel drive, but I'm really happy to see that it's actually quicker than Toyota's claim. That's typically not the case for a lot of these Japanese brands. It's typically the Europeans that are a little bit on the conservative side. But for most people who are coming from like a 4-cylinder RAV4 or Camry, which has like a wheezy 2.5-liter engine, this feels surprisingly peppy, surprisingly quick. And for those of you who have never driven fast performance EVs, this is going to feel plenty fast. In fact, you're probably going to be sold the minute you drive this car. Put my foot down here again. This is front-wheel drive. The road is damp, but it's not slipping, which is very impressive. 7.15 seconds here with it going more slightly uphill. So again, 6.6 is very impressive. And like I said earlier, we are starting out on a full 100% charge. And I do want to point out, because right now the trip computer is showing 289 miles of range. That is better versus what the EPA's number is at 242 miles of range. I have the heater turned off right now. It's 46 degrees outside, so it's not gonna get really any warmer than that. It's the middle of winter here in Pennsylvania, although the temperature is on the more milder end of colder for us here in the winter time. But I have the heater off, and I have the radiant leg heater on. I have the heated steering wheel on. I have the heated seat on, and I actually feel pretty comfortable because I don't have the heater on. Once I turn the actual heater on, the range drops to 210 miles. So you lose almost 90 miles of range when you turn on the heater. That's pretty insane to lose that much range. But Toyota kind of gets around that by, I can just turn off the heater and just use the radiant heat that's coming off of the floor area here. It actually comes from under the steering wheel and heats up your legs. Same thing on the passenger side. That's why I believe there's no glove box, because it actually heats up the air right here on your legs, and then you have the heated seat and the heated steering wheel. I actually am comfortable here with a jacket, even though the air around me is kind of cold. Every touch point that I'm sitting in is warm, so you don't have to have the heater on. Now, granted, for those of you who are in like sub-zero or sub-30 degree temps, you may still want to turn on the heat, but again, 90-mile range is pretty insane when you turn on the heat. So what I'm going to do later is I'm going to drive this car a little further. I'm going to do some range testing. I'm going to actually go to my closest Electrify America station, and we're going to charge the vehicle up and see how much current this car is capable of accepting. And we'll come back and we'll talk about that later in the conclusion. But overall, just driving this car normally, it does have kind of a regen boost function, but right now the battery is too full to be able to turn it on. And what that does is it makes this car have somewhat of a one-pedal driving effect, but it's not true one-pedal drive. It just increases the regen braking. In terms of the just daily driving the bZ4X, I'm really impressed with the ride quality. The visibility takes some getting used to. Once I got the steering wheel down a little bit lower than what I'm used to and then got used to it, the 7-inch display that's mounted high up doesn't get blocked by the wheel. For me, I had to raise the seat up a little bit. But in terms of the front view, it has a long dash design with this kind of spaceshipy look to that, which is definitely interesting. But overall, it's not too bad. Putting my foot down here, you can see the car does a really good job of mitigating the power so that it doesn't slip the wheels. Even when I'm turning, I put my foot down, you can feel it kind of cut power and send it to the wheel that has a little bit more traction. It still will slip, but it's not going to do a one-wheel peel burnout like I've tested in like the Chevrolet Bolt, which is kind of interesting. But overall, the seats are comfortable. They feel exactly the same as the seats in like a RAV4. In terms of the handling dynamics, the steering is so light and numb and dead. But surprisingly, the vehicle changes directions pretty well. It doesn't feel sporty, but it feels competent. And that's kind of what you want in a vehicle like this. I don't think Toyota needed to make this vehicle sporty. Could they do a GR version? Sure, that'd be nice. But again, if you want more power out of this chassis, I'll be driving the Lexus RZ450e in mid-March, and I'll come back and I'll talk about how much quicker that car feels. But overall, I think in terms of the sum of its parts, this is a really good vehicle, especially for Toyota's first full dedicated EV. Does it have great stats on paper? No. Does it look really cool on the outside? No. It's actually a little bit weird to very conservative looking. The interior has a really interesting design, but it's got really good tech in it, but it's really darn comfortable. And it's a Toyota. You know it's going to last a really long time, and that's kind of the beauty about why people buy this brand and why Toyota took their time with this car. So overall, I think I'm pretty impressed with living with the bZ4X on a day-to-day basis. And for those of you who are considering an EV and you must buy a Toyota, this should definitely make it to the top of your list. All right, so here we've finally pulled up to the Electrify America station. There are two other vehicles here, an Ioniq 5 and an ID4. And it's showing about 117 miles of range left. We've traveled almost exactly 100 miles. Remember, I started this trip out with 293 on the computer. Now, that's about a 60-mile range drop compared to, or I'm sorry, it's like a 70-mile range drop compared to what the computer was showing. I've driven with this, with the air conditioning or with the heater off for most of the trip. If I turn the heater on, the range drops to 86 miles. So realistically, you'll do around 180 miles on a full charge in the cold with the heater on, and around 220 miles with the heater off using the leg warmer and the heated steering wheel and heated seats. That's not wonderful, but let's go ahead and see what this thing will accept when we plug into this Electrify America DC fast charger.
You do those Redline videos?
I do, yeah.
Dude, I knew it was you. I knew it was you.
Small world, right?
Yeah. I always see your videos on Redline and whatnot. You review all the different cars and whatnot. And when you pulled up over, I'm like, that looks like that guy that I see on the videos.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah,
I appreciate
no doubt,
it.
man.
Yeah.
I appreciate your content, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got this. Which
I didn't know Toyota had electric vehicles.
it just went on sale like 2 months ago.
Really?
So, yeah. So
nice.
I'm just trying to see what I can do, like range-wise, where in the cold and stuff. So charger start error. All right, that's not good. Could not. Has not just reconnect. All right, let's try it again. Let's see if it works. Come on. Are you gonna work? Charge. There we go. All right. All right, so that took a couple of tries. Remember, for those of you who actually charge more often, you're probably gonna have an Try America account. I actually just haven't set one up yet, so I'm trying to do it the way that probably most first-time EV buyers would do it, where you just put your credit card in and see if it works. This machine is working, although it took 2 tries. Sadly, I am on the 350 kilowatt hyper fast charger because the other ones, the slower ones, are being taken. And then the last one, which is a 150, is out of service. So that's something to keep in mind. Now it looks like the car is telling us it's gonna take about 2 hours to go to a full charge. The Electrify America station here says the car is pulling only 63 kilowatts. So that's really, really slow and a far cry below the 150 kilowatt max that this car is capable of pulling. That doesn't surprise me considering it is around 45 degrees outside, and Toyota says that they were really ultra conservative. They warned a lot of owners that if you're charging in colder temperatures, like below 50 degrees, the car may have trouble actually pulling the maximum of 150 kilowatts when you're on this DC fast charger. All right, so we finally finished charging. When I started out the charge, we had around 117 miles of range. Now we have 244. According to Electrify America's thing here, we added around 29.75 kilowatts. We sat there for 41 minutes. It cost about $13.13. So not terribly expensive, but again, this vehicle charged extremely slowly. It only pulled a maximum of 63 kilowatts. In contrast, I was next to an Ioniq 5 the whole time, and they were pulling up to 170 kilowatts in the same conditions, sadly. So after spending a full week with the all-new Toyota bZ4X, I'm going to go back to my original question of was this vehicle worth the long wait, but I also want to talk about a couple of things that I noticed after spending a little bit more time with this vehicle. As you guys saw, the performance is better in the real world versus what it is on paper. I got 0 to 60 in 6.1 seconds. However, most of you don't care about that. What you'll notice in everyday driving compared to the Wheezy 4-cylinder in the RAV4 or Camry, this powertrain is smooth, linear, quick, responsive, and it's even better than, dare I say, Toyota's peaky V6 that you might find in like a V6 Camry. There's just something to be liked about this powertrain. Toyota tuned it for really smooth power delivery and just everyday drivability, which I think they nailed that. The handling dynamics is on more of the comfort-oriented scale, which is fine because people are going to use this as a family SUV. Maybe Toyota will do a GR version at some point. They could easily ramp up the motors. And in terms of the exterior styling, I think the car looks really strange, especially when you have it in this white with the black two-tone color combination. Those of you, again, who go for a darker color will have less of that kind of issue with the fenders kind of blending into the rest of the actual body. But really where this car suffers for me is in the charging speeds. Even charging this vehicle at home, it takes about 11 hours, 10 to 11 hours on my level 2, which is a charge point charger. And remember, this has a 71 kilowatt hour battery pack. About 65 of it is usable. So again, if this had roughly 11 kilowatt onboard charger, it would probably take around 7 hours to charge. So that's something that I think Toyota could fix. And also the DC fast charging rate. Keep in mind, it is winter here in Pennsylvania, and the best that this car could accept in my real world testing was around 63 kilowatts, which again, a far cry from versus the 150 that's supposed to accept. And I suspect Toyota did that. They programmed the battery to be like that because they're being ultra conservative. Toyota is promising that you'll have 90% of the battery usage still, even after 10 years of ownership. So that's something that they really pride themselves in, is reliability, durability, and longevity. So that's probably why Toyota went ultra conservative. The other cool thing about the bZ, however, is if you do buy one of these, you do get free electric or DC fast charging at any EVgo station across the US for a year. I think they actually extended that to 2 years because remember, this car had a horrible recall where the wheels are falling off and they stopped sales on it for about 6 months. However, that has all been fixed. So for those of you early buyers out there who bought one of these, I think only 283 actually went out. You did kind of get that additional credit. But overall, if you guys like or want to try electric vehicles and you really must have a Toyota, the bZ4X is perfectly a good option. They really did a lot here to blend Toyota's typically conservative approach with their reliability and of course just their everyday drivability. This car to me feels like a really interesting blend between a Prius and a RAV4, although the range could be a lot better in the real world. I mean, in my testing, only around 220 miles on a full charge in these cold conditions is pretty disappointing. Keep in mind that's with the heat off. With the heat on, it'll do around 180 miles in these colder conditions. So I'll have to wait and retest this vehicle when I finally get the all-wheel drive version in the warmer conditions. However, now that Toyota has restarted production of these cars, what's it going to cost you to buy one of these? Well, they start at $42,000 for the base XLE, add $2,000 if you want all-wheel drive. It's kind of a no-brainer to get all-wheel drive. The limited is $4,700 on top of that. Now, my tester here with the destination charge, the paint color, and that winter all-weather package that includes that leg warmer, which I highly recommend, comes in at $49,700 as tested. Now, keep in mind, this car does not qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit because it is built in Japan. So until Toyota finally decides to move production of this to North America, sadly, this and its sister vehicle, the Subaru Solterra, won't qualify, which puts it at a disadvantage when you're comparing it to vehicles like the Ford Mustang Mach-E and the Volkswagen ID.4, which currently do qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit. So was it worth the wait for Toyota's long-range EV? I'd say I think it's a decent first effort. And for those of you who haven't driven the competitors, it'll be a really impressive vehicle, but I know Toyota can do better. So I am looking forward to the company introducing more BZ vehicles along the way and hopefully improving the charging speeds, especially for those of you who plan to take this vehicle on a lot of road trips. With all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2023 Toyota bZ4X. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.